It is time. It is time to go live. But I've balanced my laptop on my knee, and I have the gesturing habits of a drunk Italian man, a middle to late aged drunk Italian man, which means when I simply want to say words, my entire body is involved. So every time I say words, you will wobble. I haven't got time to reset this up. It's going to be laptop on the knees. I'm going to be gesturing, and that is simply the way that it is. And I apologize. Yesterday, no, not yesterday. Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away. Yesterday, I was talking about this issue of it was how to distinguish if somebody's love bombing you or if they're genuinely interested. And I said there's the primary element, which is where you're trying to figure out what the other person is. The secondary element is you trying to figure out where you're up to. And then there's a tertiary element, which is like is more of a spiritual element. What I meant when I was talking about a spiritual element there in that context is more in the NLP school. They have the Robert Dilts model, where when you model out and your frame of context gets wider and wider, it's called spiritual. So by spiritual, what I meant was the whole thing. So you go like personal, then other, then at the level of emotions, at the different neurological levels. And then when you encompass everything, it becomes a spiritual. That's, I think a lot of these problems are spiritual. But, and I wouldn't argue that perhaps there's an element of like a religious element to it or whatever. But what I mean is more in the sense of like a philosophical sense of spirituality, where it's your map. I nearly said your map of meaning. It's your bloody map of meaning, eh? It's all about suffering. It really is. It's how you map meaning, literally. It would be the maps for what you find to be of value, that which you distinguish in terms of being of value or not. I actually listened to a Jordan Peterson podcast the other day, and he did like a 7-minute long bit about walking across the stage to a chair. And he was saying that when you're doing that, in order to see the chair and move there, there's a lot that you block out and there's a lot that you focus on. And what you choose to block out and what you choose to focus on is actually based on the internal maps that you're running, which is true. And these maps are based on meaning and value moving into morality, like what is right, what is wrong, what is useful, what is functional, what is non-functional. So what I meant when I was talking about spirituality, there was like a holistic view. So which ties into this idea that if you're looking to overcome trauma, childhood trauma or heartache or whatever the pain is, or the difficulties, the scars that have been acquired over the years through romantic interactions, you cannot escape the necessity for an alteration in your map of reality. And it needs to be at he's doing air quotes, two little bunny rabbits running around. Look, they're meeting, they're kissing. It needs to be at the level of everything. It needs to encompass everything. It needs to be deep. It needs to be profound. If you're doing a certain thing and it happens again and again and again and again, you could try to change your external circumstances, but that would be a high calorie burn way of getting things done. It wouldn't be magnificently efficient to do it that way. Far more efficient it would be to actually just change you, because as the saying goes, you indeed are we are the common denominator. So it's easier really to change ourselves, I think. How do we change ourselves? If you're doing the same thing and the same outcome happens again and again and again, then probably what needs to happen is a profound change to your map, a profound change in your outlook of how reality works. If you are trying and failing to overcome a trauma, if you're struggling with depression, if you're struggling with anxiety and you're stuck in that cycle, then the only route out, I suggest, that's going to last, that's not artificial, that's not cosmetic, that's not surface level. It's going to be a deep change in your spiritual philosophical outlook. This is why intense psychedelic experiences work. When people tell me, oh, MDMA therapy apparently is getting great results, I'm like, well, I'm not too surprised. Ayahuasca apparently gets results sometimes. Psilocybin gets, mushrooms can offer insight. I'm not surprised. What does a fundamental shift in your view of reality equate to? Neuroplasticity, a massive amount of neuroplasticity. Because if you have a fundamental shift that we would regard as being spiritual or religious, it encompasses everything. If it doesn't answer the big questions, it at least points at an answer to the big questions. What is reality? Why are we here? What is right? What is wrong? How should a person live? These, to me, are the big philosophical questions. If you change the system that you're operating on to a system that is at least attempting to answer those questions, you then have to relearn how to walk from where you are to where the chair is. You now have to relearn how to live life, because it's a totally different operating system. You become like a child again. You are, oh, they have a term for this in religion. It's called born again. It's called born again. So you are now like a newborn child that has to learn how to navigate this world from a totally new, and we hope, upgraded operating system. When people tell me that they changed, that they broke free of their addiction to alcohol or drugs, whatever it was, because they're of a refound, a reinvigorated love or re-enlightenment in their religion, be it Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, Muslim. I've had friends from all those religions who said that they went through some kind of a spiritual revival. I believe them. I believe them. But it needs to be at that level. Let me shift. I can't deal with the fact that the screen is wobbling. I just can't. And I can't sit still. I should learn how to sit still when I'm speaking, because there's no reason to speak with my knees and my entire body. However, I find it hard. Yes, now I shall do the rest of this live in this way, without moving, in a clipped British accent, as though I was one of the baddies from Star Wars. Lord Vader killed them all. Oh, I'm gonna have to move. I can't stop moving I can't stop moving. I have to move around. It feels weird for me otherwise. Since I've come back, I have noticed that my accent has gotten stronger again because I'm talking to people who are from the area. And I try my best to tone my accent down in these videos, because it's really hard for me to convey anything that's to do with philosophy or psychology in a very, very Scouse accent. It doesn't work. Yolanda Miernik says, "You have lovely hands, so move them." Thank you, Yolanda. Ah, they're touching my face. Ah! I hope you're an Everton fan, says Daniel De Percy. I couldn't care less about kick the ball because I'm an adult. Let me see if I can care less. No, I don't fucking care. No, I'm not a football fan. I simply don't care. And it's not because I'm an adult, because I'm not. Because you know what game I do like? Punchy, punchy. Punchy, punchy, roll on the floor. So it's not about being an adult. And in fact, football is a far more civilized game than punchy, punchy, roll on the floor. Well, it should be. But they do sometimes do punchy, punchy, don't they? They go, yeah. And then the other multi-millionaire rock star footballer goes, no, falls down and starts weeping. Anyway, let's get back to meaning. You know, you're the second person who asked me for help today as an Everton fan. I know I met a guy over in Liverpool in a shop, and he said, "Oh, you're in psychology. Have you got any advice for Everton fans?" I was like, "I don't even know what that question means." But one thing he did say that relates to neuroplasticity, he said Everton's in a really bad way, and he said some of the Liverpool team under 18s beat the adult Everton team. And I said, well, what age is that? And he was like, oh, they were from 16 to 21. And I said, well, I don't know football, but I know martial arts. And to me, there isn't really that much shame in that, because I remember in probably, I was going to say 10 years ago. Dream on, Richard. It wasn't 10 years ago. It was about 15 or 16 years ago. And in Liverpool, I think Paul Rimmer's quite famous now as a BJJ and an MMA coach, and he runs I can't remember, it's called the Liverpool MMA Academy. It used to be Liverpool Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And we get lads coming in who'd done 6 months of BJJ. And I'd been at it since I was 18. And at that time I was 25. So I've been at it for 7 years, and they would just roll me over. They just flip me on my head. Because when you are young and you don't have anything else on the hard drive, there's no trauma on, there's very little trauma on the hard drive. There's very little cack. There's very little gack. There's very little nonsense there. And you're just focused on that one thing. You're super, super able. And you know who one of those fighters was that was rolling me around? A gentleman called Terry Ettim. When he was 19, he used to come and I'd grapple with him, and he'd put me in a guillotine choke and explain to me. He'd just be super nice. He'd be like, "Okay, Richie, this is what I'm doing now because you've moved." And he'd be talking to me. He was one of the lads who'd done, I think at that point he'd done 9 months. He'd done 9 months of MMA training, and he could just roll me over. He could also do a flying knee from standing that went higher than my head, which was really impressive. Anyway, neuroplasticity. Youth helps. And my current theory at the moment is, who are they? They are watching us now, Maxwell. The light. Oh, you'll live with it. You'll survive. What do you want me to do? There you go. You're all right now. Ooh, imagine if this is still for the video. I got the sides cut short today. There's my super white face doing this. We'll just have this as the still for the video. And then the light comes through my hands. Deplatformed. You'll be like, where's all his videos gone? Deplatformed. Instant deplatforming. So you go. So my theory is that over time, actually, a lot of people pick up micro traumas, and as we age, a lot of people are walking around micro traumatized, a lot of unresolved anxiety, a lot of unresolved depression, and then they kind of fall, not everyone, but some people kind of fall back in on themselves. I'm going to get into this tomorrow with Pierre XO. We're doing a live together tomorrow night, which if you look on the main channel page, you'll see. But I'm quite interested in that at the moment because I think I've been saying this, I think, for a year or so now, like neuroplasticity is key for resolving trauma, for getting your life together, for feeling good and feeling active and having energy and all the rest of it. Neuroplasticity is a really big part of it. If we get too stuck in our ways, I think we start to sort of die a little bit. We definitely go a bit bonkers. So you got to have freshness, you got to have newness all the time coming through. Okay, Liz Broad says, stop trying to manifest deplatforming. Don't worry, I'm not going to get deplatformed. YouTube loves me. Why have you got your 3 fingers up in the 666 sign? There's so many paranoid people on YouTube. Don't worry, I won't be deplatformed. Recovery with Krista. Did this video just begin? For you it did. And so therefore, yes. In your reality tunnel, it did just begin. And so it did just began. It did just began. Sikkong Ying Mena. Lol. Illuminati. I see what you did there. I liked it very much. I would join them. The Illuminati? That's so 2008. I'm in the Illuminati. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, now would be a good time to ask them. You can ask literally anything at all, make them 1 sentence long and have them end in the squiggly thing with a dot under it that most people refer to as a question mark. YouTube better love you. People need you, man. Thank you very much. Jay Russell says, I thought that was a white power sign. As far as I know, this was original. I think it's a magical sign originally, and then some people said no, it's for Satanists because it looks like 3 6s. There was a troll thing where if you did this, they said it was a white power sign, but it's I don't think that it is. I don't think it legitimately is. That would be like a cockerel in silhouette. That would be like a bunny. What to do against burnout? Rest, rest, rest. Get away from all sources of stimulation and provocation and rest. Humans love rest. Humans love silence. You'll be going, no, I fucking hate silence. No, that's only because you've been tortured and traumatized and trauma bonded stimulation, but secretly you love the silence of the lambs. How to rest? You'll do it naturally when you stop stimulating yourself. Get off caffeine for a few days, get away from the internet for a few days, like completely, all technology for a few days, get a book. It's printed on paper. Smell the pages. Agent Starling, l'air du temps. And then you will rest. What do I do with the sexual addiction and the depravity that's been unleashed in me? Ride it like a monster all the way to your enlightenment. I don't know. I don't know. I hope it's not real sexual addiction. Depravity can be as a result of repression. So I would treat these things as an emotional flashback. I suspect that many people who say that they're struggling with sexual addiction and depraved thoughts that go with it. Louis C.K. did a very funny stand-up routine about it. It's usually extreme self-neglect. Like the emotional side of the self is just completely ignored. Tell me a story. What do you think of the latest Star Wars? I wouldn't know, because I won't watch that corporate trash that fell from Satan's bomb hole. Boop, boop. What came out? Another Star Wars film. Pooh, stay away from that. Pooh, 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 pooh. No, I refuse. I simply refuse. After the last Star Wars movie I went to see with this Kylo Ren, and then they did weird things with Han Solo. They did weird things with Princess Leia, and they did weird things with Luke Skywalker. And I was like, yo, you can fuck around with your new characters who aren't real, but you play with canon. You play with canon, Disney. No. So no, I refuse. I refuse to see it. I will not partake of the nonsense that is Star Wars. Donna Beatty says plop. And that is my movie review. Plop. Tell me a story says it was bad. I'm not surprised. They messed everything off. There is a deliberate attack on quality in storytelling right now. This is my new conspiracy theory. Why? Because it destroys your ability to think. I watched a really cool interview. I didn't watch it. I listened to it yesterday between two Jungian professors. And they said that what Lucas had done was he took a book about myths and archetypes by an author whose name I forget. Some clever person will write it in the comments. Blended it with Flash Gordon and produced a blockbuster. These were what, like the original, the first three were straight Jungian archetypes, straight Jungian mythology, and they were powerful. The rest is ideology at its purest. Remember when Luke, Leia, and Han and Chewie fell into a fucking trash can? This, I claim, was the space trash can or what of ideology. And there were slugs under there, man. Slimy slugs. Joseph Campbell, thank you. Joseph Campbell says, Lee, Flesh Gordon, get your mind out of the gutter. Flash Gordon. Flash Gordon. Yes. I had an awesome massage today, says Victoria. Wonderful. I laughed through it. Wonderful. I'm very happy for you. It's great. Could you explain what exactly mirror neurons are, please? No. Why? because I don't know, and I'd give you a shit version of it, you would need to speak to somebody who's qualified in that subject. And that is not me. It's like a sun or a moon. No, I can't. No, to the left. No, your left. Your left. To the right. Ow. Ow. That's becoming a shoulder lock. No, there it is. Do you believe, Bell of Amherst, do you believe there is a difference between BPD and C-PTSD? Do you hate me? Is that what the problem is? Do you hate me? Hello, Bell of Amherst. That's an excellent question, a very interesting question. I have wrestled with it here several times and have been doing for about 5 years. There is a difference between BPD and C-PTSD. I've covered it in other videos. I don't have the motivation to cover it again today. It's a very, very difficult subject. Many of the modalities, let me give you something positive. The modalities that are designed to heal BPD will help massively with C-PTSD. If you speak to somebody like Sam Vaknin, well, you love him, you hate him, you think he's a bad guy, you think he's a good guy. He's very intelligent and he's very, very well read on this subject. It says at a certain point, psychiatry, psychiatric diagnoses, and psychology break down into a kind of literary exercise. And the winners are those who can write the best explanations and definitions of the symptoms and cluster them together for a diagnosis. So BPD doesn't really exist. C-PTSD doesn't really exist. The diagnosis of BPD comes with certain assumptions. The diagnosis of C-PTSD comes with certain other assumptions. But, you know, maybe there's a big overlap. Maybe there's a big overlap. If I saw somebody who said that they thought that they had BPD and I thought I could work with them, I would straight up just work with them as though they were a C-PTSD client, seek to emotionally re-regulate them, and then see what happened from there. My only issue with Sam Vaknin is he talks too much. I don't mind him talking. I always learn when Sam is talking. The false critic. Do you believe this is why Sam Vaknin enjoys spending time with you, because you mirror back to him as grandiose version of himself? No, that's not a grandiose version of him. That's not at all a grandiose version of Sam. A grandiose version of Sam would be to say he's a super genius Renaissance man who, you know, could turn his hand to any subject and has and do well. That's the grandiose version. Him as a highly intelligent, very well-read guy who has a lot of informative things to say about psychology is a very mediocre review of the guy. I mean, psychology is one of his subjects. It's just one. He has many. They include things like quantum physics and mathematics and finance and religion and history. So no, the version that I gave was not grandiose at all. And I don't have Sam on any kind of a pedestal. He likes talking to me because I'm not up his arse about the fact that he's been diagnosed with narcissism and psychopathy. I treat him with respect in the way that I was trained to do in my education growing up, because I was lucky enough to have a very formal British private school education. When you see Harry Potter at Hogwarts, that's what my boarding school looked like back in the day when I was a kid. And we had teachers who were highly intelligent, not very well functioning socially, probably a lot of whom would be described as being on the autism spectrum. We were very lucky. We had a lot of like ex-Oxford, Cambridge, Bristol, Warwick teachers there. And so I learned to work with them. And we all did. It's the way that I speak to Sam from my background is totally normal. That's the way a student would speak to a teacher. A student would speak to a professor. To people who are not familiar with that, they're like looking for the conspiracy. They're like, why is Richard in a flashback? Is he fawning to a narcissist? Is it a game? Is Richard a covert narcissist? And they're looking for some weird, you know, backstory to it, simply because they watch too much TV and they don't think very clearly. Now, here's something else Human Life Experience says we need a wiki page for Richard's channel. I can't get verified on Instagram or on YouTube. And you think, well, why would you want to do that anyway? The validity of posts and the message of the post is stronger if people don't think it's a fan account. And one of the reasons I can't get verified is because there's very few links for me out there. And I actually was just reviewing the links to, like, where do I exist in official media? And like, in really odd and sometimes dodgy places. You know, I was in an independent martial arts movie. I was in an independent documentary that was about people who chose to become real world vigilantes called The Real Outlaws. So when they look for me, they're like, this guy is sketchy. There's nothing verifiable for him. So I have wondered if I had a Wikipedia page, if it would help, or it might be worse. I don't know, because people might just spam it like, the guy's a jerk, he's a narcissist too, secretly a narcissist. Harley Johnson says, my friends make me feel self-conscious and insecure about my eccentric sense of humor, and it makes me lack confidence to be myself. I joke about Vlad Putin, dangerous habit. What do I do? Stop, or you'll fall down in the shower 6 times in a row. This is not a joke. I don't know if it pleases you to have these kinds of jokes, then I maybe continue with them. And if your friends really, really don't like it, then that particular group of friends just adapt to where they're up to, and then maybe make some new friends on top of them. Don't put the new friends on top of the old friends. That's rude. Make some new friends and see if you can get some people who do like a little bit of an edgier form of comedy from you. Miss A says, God forbid someone helping on narcissism issues get verified. It is a little bit, yeah, but it is my fault. It is a little bit my fault. Like, I've always been a bit, you know, like bravado and sort of like a bit swaggering about doing things by the book. And like, fuck it, I don't need it, blah blah blah. Even with media stuff. Oh, the Vice documentary was one of the links, which is just also the trash from Satan's bumhole. And so I've never taken care of that, and it's only like now that I'm like, if I want to get my message out to people, but I look and sound fringe, then people just be like, well, we're not listening to this guy because he's not. And whilst I am, I don't want them to know that. I want them to think I'm not. Why are narcissists everywhere in society? How can anybody cope? Says Reuben Witter. Reuben Witter. I don't know. It seems, my friend, that we are in a phase of humanity where the natural narcissism that resides within all of us has been provoked, inflamed, and exacerbated. Indeed, we can say for certainty that the social media platforms reward highly narcissistic behavior now, to the point where narcissism is kind of almost becoming a meaningless diagnosis. Because if you have a society and everybody in the society is highly narcissistic, then by logic, nobody is narcissistic. Like, it's not a distinctive feature. You're no longer the outlier. You're now the norm. That process of moving from a strange fringe outlier perspective and making that strange outlier perspective or mode of being the norm is called hypernormalization. And it is one method of many of destroying a culture, which is why some conspiracy theorists believe that it's a deliberate effort. It's actually about tearing at the very threads of the fabric of our society. So I don't really know where I stand on that one. I suspect to a degree it might be true, but even I would be asking who would be the they in that one? Who would benefit from tearing a society from the inside out? And perhaps the argument would just be simple, you know, it's capitalism, consumerism. If we don't have each other, then we must buy. If we don't have each other, we become depressed and anxious. And if we're trying to ameliorate that depression and that anxiety, we'll hand over more of our civil liberties to the governing bodies, and we'll buy more trainers or sneakers. I don't know where you are, Ruben, whether you would wear trainers or sneakers or boots. Thanks for your question. It is a good one. Do you think the US is way more traumatized than the rest of the world? No, I think it is more propagandized than any other country I have ever been to by a big fat margin. Propagandized. Perhaps you could argue that propagandization is a traumatic process. So yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Do you like Scottish folk music? Let me sing to you. It's a song about shearing sheep. It goes, Bonny lassie, will ye gang and shear with me the hail day lang? A young shepherd is approaching a nice looking girl, and he's like, I know what this girl's gonna like. I know what this girl's gonna like. Check me out. Hey, do you want to come with me and shave some sheep? And it wasn't a euphemism. It was an innocent time. This is the Highlands of Scotland. They genuinely went and shaved some sheep. It's a beautiful song with many layers of deep meaning. I'll take another question now. More dating tips, please. Hee. You don't want to ask a single man for dating tips. That calls to the Irish in me. Well, today I had on blast, because I had some jobs to do. I had to drive around a little bit, I had to drive around the world and then drive around Liverpool. We had the Leaving of Liverpool, we had the Star of the County Down, and you know that song about the black band, Boss. And I was just belting out in the car, and then I was parked and at traffic lights, and I could see the people in front of me were laughing as I'm like shouting the lyrics to the Leaving of Liverpool. It's great. It's a really good it's a good endorphin release of that. Get a bit of Irish folk music on the go and just dance around a little bit. It's great. Stacey de Young says, how did you get the sun on the inside? Every man and woman is a star, and the sun is only a star. I suspect that there's so non-prescriptively, just anecdotally. I'm now talking anecdotally, because if you clip this out, they'll be like, I knew this guy was trying to start a cult. I could see him trying to start a cult. I'm not. Let me tell you something that's a personal reflection of my experience. What I think is happening is I think the natural state of people uninterrupted, uninterfered with, and unpropagandized is probably quite happy, is probably quite radiant. And there's a lot of natural energy that comes from within, right? And if you start harnessing that and working with that, and you take away the blocks to it that are from culture, that are from propagandization, that are from trauma, that are from childhood abuse and sexual abuse and physical abuse and that then leads to drug addiction and terrible lifestyle choices in my case, and you start working that away, that natural sun is then very, very present. Now, I'm still talking anecdotally and not prescriptively. I know that this has real power, and the way that I know this is if you look up who the Falun Gong are, the Falun Gong in China. I knew that the Chinese, the communist Chinese establishment were rounding up the Falun Gong, and they were torturing them in the most horrendous ways, imprisoning them and torturing them. And I thought, well, first of all, the name is Falun Gong, and I'm like, well, you know, I don't know what that is. So I thought, oh, maybe it's like a Muslim minority ethnic group, which they do have in China, and they have experienced some oppression, or maybe they're related to Tibetans ethnically, because you know the Chinese have been historically really fucking cruel to the Chinese communist regime. Not the Chinese have been very cruel to the Tibetans, so I thought that's what they were. You know who the Falun Gong are? This big threat to Chinese communism. This group of zealots, of lunatics, the Falun Gong. The Falun Gong right, are practitioners of Qigong. Do you know what Qigong is? Qigong is the pure energy cultivation element of Tai Chi. You know, you see people doing this in line with their breathing at the same time, and they're cultivating their Qi, they're cultivating their inner energy. Do you know how long the Falun Gong, do you want to know how many centuries and millennia Falun Gong practice has been going for? Since 1993. It's a totally new, totally modern, I believe, if I'm misspeaking exactly what the Falun Gong roots are, I apologize, but it's like, it's this eclectic modern movement of spiritual beliefs that are kind of in the realm of the new age. And the purpose of it is the cultivation of internal energy. That's it. That's it. That's so threatening that they have rounded these people up, persecuted them, and tortured them in recent history. And you think, what, what? They're not. They're not ethnically different. You know, it's not like I'm going, well, if they were ethnically different, that would make sense. Historically, there's a precedent for it because of xenophobia. I suspect that we have like a software fault inside of all of us, all humans, to fear other humans, but who are from a different background. There's like this weird, freaky thing that happens. No, they're just Chinese people. So that's Chinese people who are in a political ideology, and Chinese people who like waving their hands and breathing at the same time for the cultivation of their internal energy so that they feel good. Oh, what? We can't have that. What do you want to do with them? I'd definitely kill them. And the ones that we don't kill, let's imprison and torture them. It's insane. So I am very convinced at this point that your natural state, when you're alive and switched on and feeling good, actually is a massive threat to those who are in power. Now, thankfully, we don't live under a communist regime that would imprison and torture us for opposing views, but we do live in how should I put it? Slavoj Zizek says, we don't have the words to describe our own unfreedom. Or the other way he puts it is, yes, you have your freedom, but the freedom to do what? It's not true freedom that we have. So we're not in a harsh, oppressive regime where if you go and do some Qigong exercises, you're going to get your legs broken for you. But we are in a place where there are norms, and if you step outside of those norms, it's harshly punished. We're quite repressed, but softly, in a much softer, much more subtle, much more insidious way. We're repressed, and I suspect that that's necessary if you want to be in control. You're going to have to hurt people. You're going to have to suppress them. You're going to have to cause them to fall back in on themselves, to sort of repress themselves, as it were, to keep them at a certain level. When that is removed, you've already got a sun inside of you. It's just under layers of shit. So if you move the layers of shit, it will come out, right? You know, in Islam, they say if somebody is a kafar, that means it's shorthand for infidel, a non-believer. But what it actually means in Arabic is to dig a hole and bury a secret. So you're actually burying light. You're actually burying the truth, because the sun is the truth. The sun that is inside of you, the light that is inside of you, is the truth. The kafar are those who, through trauma, through scarring, through the creation of trenches, hide light. They're the barriers of light. And what is the truth that they're hiding? That there is only one sun, there is only one light, there is only one truth. And if you're in alignment with that, then it's all good, baby. It's all good, baby. I did go a bit deep and spiritual there. I'll take a couple more questions, and then I'm going to take my son off to the gym. Ask me a question. Quickly. Grannon's take on Jing's individuation process. Jing! I don't know enough about the individuation process. I'm sorry. I'll look it up and learn. I'm learning about Jungian shadow work, which I always kind of felt up until now was a bit like something posturing nincompoops would say that they did. Oh, I'm doing shadow work. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean exactly, you gingerbread latte, kale eating ponce? Algorithm, do you think Ubuntu or a co-op society can work with modern humans, aka no central government? I don't. It's a really interesting subject. I love it. I'm not well versed enough on it, and I've not been thinking about it for long enough. I've only been thinking about this for the last 2 years, and I don't think about it much. It's like on and off. So I don't know whether I'd have anything particularly useful to say to you. What concerns me with this kind of question, and what concerns me with these paradigms, is it doesn't concern me, but I think we shouldn't be blind to context, financial, cultural, media, health, everything is all about context. And you cannot put the toothpaste back in the tube when the toothpaste is time and the tube is history. So how would we humans, in the numbers we're in, which is huge numbers of human beings who've lived all of our adult lives with a central government, go back to no central government? And how would that function? And would it even be, is it even feasible with the population numbers that we have now? And I would say probably not. After World War III and the nuclear apocalypse, and we've lost 2/3 of the human beings who are currently on the planet, then ask me the question again, but you won't be asking it me via YouTube. I'm joking, kids. I don't think any of that stuff is going to happen. Oh, no, son. Eclipse. So yeah, like right now, I don't know. But if you're talking about like The Walking Dead, what you're saying in The Walking Dead, well, I don't watch Walking Dead anymore. It's so badly written, unfortunately, because I used to love that show. What you're saying in The Walking Dead is these groups, these factions, it's like an all-American survival story, but it's actually primitive communism. It's primitive Marxist. It's Marxist called it primitive communism, is what you're saying. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a cool question. People who are more qualified than me would probably give you a better answer. All I would do is say, hey, 2 things: can't reverse time, and you can't deduct context from a question like that. I'll take one more and then I'll go. Oh, box tonight, but just gently. Just real smooth, nice, bit of a yoga stretch, little bit of pad work, keep the heart rate low, just move around, get flexible. I'm seeing a doctor for my knee in the morning. There is a chance that they may need to take a piece of my hamstring out, slap it on the side of my knee, and make the knee better like that. But hopefully not. Pain, full of pleasure. How could I find out if I'm projecting? Not through a YouTube comment, mate. Sorry. There's nothing really I can give you that would be like, this is going to let you know how you're projecting. If it's true projection, like we have appropriated certain psychiatric terms into mainstream culture. So you'd be like, hey, you're projecting, and it would be, you're accusing me of what you're guilty of, and that's not. I mean, strictly speaking, if we're using the psychoanalytic language properly, it's unconscious. So how can you consciously go into your unconscious and know what's happening? You probably can't. You probably would need a really, really good and skillful therapist to help you with that. If it's like a low level situation, then you could take more of a new agey or spiritual or philosophical point of view, and just go, hey, when I'm blaming that person for this thing, is that because it's me that's doing it? And if you get like a little internal, dowsing, like, oh, kind of, yes, something to look at, and you'll be like, oh, maybe this is projection in the layman's terms meaning of, but otherwise, no, there's very little chance you could find genuine projection in yourself without external help. Painful of pleasure. Oh, you're right. That is a weird name. I'm so used to people with weird names that your name is human life experience. Don't judge, man. No, I'm so used to people having weird names that I don't even say it. I will reflect on the badness of the world while I unblock the drains, says Scowls McJowls. That's good, man. It's a good time to get into a philosophical headspace whilst you're unblocking drains. I had a conversation with Pierre XO in Prague a couple of months ago. We were talking about the worst jobs we'd ever done. And because he was eating, I lied and said the worst job I'd ever done was working in an electrical store in Bromborough, Curry's in Bromborough, if any of you are from the area. When I was 16, that was the most soul-crushing job I ever had. It was at Christmas, so every Christmas track was just like torture to me now. It's not the worst job I ever did. The worst job I ever did was in Zakynthos, which the Brits laid the sewage system in Zakynthos, which is an island off Greece, I think in the 1940s. And then loads of British tourists came later. So you have like sewerage pipes that are this wide for hundreds of thousands of tourists every year. So one of the worst jobs I ever did was helping those pipes to move. Ain't shit changed, homies. Ain't shit changed. I'm still doing it today, baby. Susie Beeman says, what time is it there? It is now 9:15. I'm going to go to the gym, do my little stretch, do my little light boxing workout, and then I'm going to get myself to bed because I got an early doctor's appointment. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time and for your attention. This is my impression of the lady from Sounds True Recordings. Thank you for your time, for your attention, and I hope that was useful, and I look forward to speaking to you all again soon. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye. Cheerio.